Police arrest a suspect in yesterday's Hung Hom wounding case. Tokyoites express their views on Japan's expected first female leader. And smoke still rising in Gaza, but peace may be on the horizon. Hello and welcome to TVB News. I'm Melissa Hekalea. The police have arrested a suspect in yesterday's knife attack at To Kwa Wan's Hoi Sham Park. Two of the wounded remain in critical condition. Sources said the two victims did not know their attacker. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Marine police continued their search for the attacker's weapon underwater throughout the morning, while officers from the police's Kowloon West headquarters conducted their investigation at the crime scene. The incident happened at around noon yesterday when the police received reports of an attack on two men aged 24 and 37 respectively at Hoi Sham Park. They were suddenly assaulted by a knife-wielding man near one of the park's pavilions. Officers discovered the two injured men lying on the ground, with large amounts of blood seen at the crime scene. Authorities said the two victims were friends and ate and rested at the pavilion around half an hour before the attack. The police noted the attacker was using a phone at a nearby location before he moved towards the two men. He proceeded to stab them repeatedly with a knife no bigger than the size of a human palm. The 20-year-old victim suffered from neck and shoulder knife wounds, while the 37-year-old suffered similar injuries to the neck and chest, with both remaining hospitalized. Sources said the arrested suspect is believed to be homeless and suffers from mental problems, and could regularly be seen spending time in various parks around Shamshui-po and Hong Kong. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
In Jordan, at least 8 people were injured in a traffic accident involving 3 private cars and 2 buses. A private car driver was arrested on suspicion of drug trafficking. The incident happened near Shanghai Street at around 2 p.m. One car veered onto a pedestrian walkway, another car stopped on a pedestrian island. The police arrested a driver at the scene who was suspected of drug trafficking and furious driving. Drugs were allegedly found in his vehicle. Among the injured were 2 pedestrians who were conscious when sent to hospital. Financial Secretary Paul Chan noted there will be a new batch of more than 10 strategic enterprises that will set up their bases or expand their businesses in the city within this week. This, as he said, more than 100 such enterprises have been attracted by authorities to settle in Hong Kong. As part of the government's drive to attract more businesses to the SAR, Chan announced that a special signing ceremony will be held for the occasion this week. The FS added that 3 of the latest enterprises to call Hong Kong home are amongst the world's top 10 pharmaceutical companies. A 2-envelope system is often used in the procurement of complex works projects where the technical quality is as important as or more important than the price. Secretary for Development Bernadette Lin explained that such a system will be adopted for the bidding of Hung Shui Q pilot area to signify that the quality of the tenders is important. Mimo Singai reports.
On different occasions, the government stresses the need to accelerate the planning and development of the Northern Metropolis project. Authorities earlier announced that they will invite tenders for the Hung Shui Q pilot area by the end of the year. Speaking on a TVB program, Secretary for Development Bernadette Lin said the adoption of a 2-envelope system for the bidding allows the government to examine the tender's quality.
We will announce the weighting between the cash and the non-cash element, whether it is half-half or a higher weighting to the quality aspect. How established is the enterprise bidding for the land? How much they are willing to invest into the industrial land parcels within it, and how quick they are going to deliver.
Meanwhile, the administration plans to introduce designated legislation proposals for the mega project early next year in relation to changes in land use. Lim provided an example on how the government may do so.
It is only about to facilitate the minor relaxations of development parameters as the development moves on. When we talk about different clusters of industrial land, currently, because the relevant outline zoning plans covering these different clusters are formulated in different years. So sometimes the land use permitted for each of the industrial area are a bit different. So there are some inconsistencies. If we want to make them consistent, because they are all actually industrial park.
Mamos 9, TVB News.
U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to travel to South Korea on the 29th of this month in what could be a brief stopover ahead of an Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum summit. This year's APEC summit is slated for October 31st to November 1st in Gyeongju, with potential attendance of top business leaders, including NVIDIA's Jensen Huang and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. Trump's visit to the South Korean city, which is likely to be a one-day trip, will follow his attendance at the ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur and meetings with the new president of Japan's ruling party. It's reported that Trump will hold bilateral talks with President Xi Jinping, but may depart before the main sessions of the summit conclude. Government circles anticipate that President Xi will attend the APEC summit and the leaders' dinner, and also hold talks with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung on the sidelines. The newly elected leader of Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, Sane Takaichi, said she will immediately work on stemming rising prices while also focusing on diplomatic and security challenges. Takaichi is likely to become Japan's first woman prime minister. The reaction on the street to her win has been mixed, as newspapers distributed special edition copies to passers-by touting her historic victory. Tracy Furness has more.
In her first news conference as the Liberal Democratic Party leader, Takaichi said she was hoping to change the scenery for LDP a little. In regards to the controversial Yasukuni Shrine, which honours the country's war dead, she said the shrine is a peaceful facility for the war dead. I will properly judge how to pay respects to the war dead and pray for peace accordingly. This issue definitely should not be a diplomatic one. As a successor of the outgoing Prime Minister, Shigeru Ishiba, Takaichi said she respects all tariffs and investment agreements struck between Tokyo and Washington under the Ishiba government. The LDP remains by far the largest party in the lower house, which determines the national leader. Takaichi, as leader of the party, is likely to become the country's next Prime Minister. As special edition newspapers hit the streets of Tokyo, reaction to her victory were mixed. These office workers said a non-hereditary politician was chosen and the first woman. Yes, I think there's hope because she's the first female party leader. This man said he was concerned about her hardline conservative views. I do have expectations, but what concerns me a bit are some of her past statements that seem somewhat nationalistic. If that kind of rhetoric goes too far now, the whole world seems to be moving in that direction. It raises concerns. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Israel continues to target Hamas in Gaza as Egypt is about to host negotiations with Hamas. Israel also sent a delegation to Cairo as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has agreed to a U.S. peace plan, says hostages should be released in the coming days. Israel and Hamas are at their closest point to ending the war. David Garrett with more.
Smoke still rising from Gaza this Sunday, but there could be peace and an end to the fighting on the horizon. Hamas are engaging in talks with Egypt. It's already known that the militant group accepts most of the US-led peace plan. Israel continuing its hunt for Hamas at the moment, but Prime Minister Netanyahu suggesting an imminent return to Israel of all hostages, alive and dead, taken during the Hamas attacks on Israel on October 7th, 2023. That's exactly what these protesters have been demanding over the weekend, and during nearly every weekend since the war began 2 days short of exactly 2 years ago. The Prime Minister says he sent a delegation to Egypt to finalise details, adding all hostages from Gaza could be home in the coming days. Benjamin Netanyahu saying we're on the verge of a significant achievement. It's not final yet. We are working on it. I hope we will be able to announce the return of all our hostages while the IDF remains deep in the strip and in the controlling areas. The crowds of relatives and supporters grew larger and larger as Netanyahu teased a deal. The activists know this could be their final rally and last chance.
We are suspended between hope and dread. We have lived through Hamas lies before. We cannot let another deal collapse. Not again. President Trump, we stand with you. Do not stop. It is now or never.
Donald Trump warned Hamas they must make the deal happen fast. The US president showing the withdrawal of Israeli forces on a map on social media. When Hamas agrees, the ceasefire will begin immediately, Trump wrote.
We're with the Israeli army and we are about to cross from southern Israel into the Gaza Strip.
The Associated Press among a group of journalists given rare access to Gaza. Israel has blocked international reporters since its siege on Gaza and attacks on Hamas began. Sam Mednick and her team say they saw buildings flattened all the way from the border to the largest urban areas.
You could see the soldiers, they were looking at the screens in front of them where they could see if there were any people in any of the buildings. And you could see on the screens that there was some movement of civilians in those buildings. The soldiers said that it's hard sometimes to know who's a fighter and who's not. They say they try to look for guns.
Israeli soldiers told journalists Hamas are still fighting back using tunnels, snipers and IEDs as delegations meet in Egypt to try to finalise peace. David Garrett, TVB News.
Still ahead, populist candidate, the winner of Czech parliamentary election. Protests in Georgia after government claims win in municipal elections. And government and NGO urge visitors to protect Sai Kung Island's environment. Welcome back. In Georgia, riot police used pepper spray and water cannons to force protesters away from the presidential palace on Saturday as protesters opposed to the government staged a large demonstration on the day of municipal elections. The governing Georgian Dream Party said it had clinched victory in every municipality across the country in an election boycotted by the two largest opposition blocs. Tracy Furness reports.
Tens of thousands of protesters gathered in the Georgian capital Tbilisi Saturday to call for the resignation of the current government, many waving the Georgian flag, some the EU flag.
We fight for our rights, for independence. We want to be our country, a member of the European Union. So we don't want to be Russia. We don't want to enter in Russia, to return in Soviet Republic. So we fight for our rights, for independence, for justice, and for human rights.
Today was a mock elections conducted in Georgia, which has nothing to do with elections in its traditional and democratic sense. This is one of those days when many people basically took to the streets, and we will continue until the aim is achieved and Georgian people get power back and the Russian regime is pushed out of power.
By Saturday evening, the scene was not so peaceful as clashes with police prevailed. Barricades set up by police were burnt and some moved. They see the ruling Georgian Dream Party pulling the country away from its democratic aspirations and into Russia's orbit. The ruling Georgian Dream halted talks about joining the EU bloc last year, triggering waves of protests that have been met with mass arrests and police violence. Many believe this latest election was rigged as the long-time ruling party declared victory. Rallies big and small have continued in the country despite a multi-pronged crackdown by the government. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Czech's opposition ANO party, led by former Prime Minister and billionaire businessman Andrej Babis, has won the country's parliamentary elections and is set to replace the incumbent center-right cabinet. Babis's return to power could steer the EU and NATO member country to adopt a more pro-Russian stance and cut military aid to Ukraine. Czech President Petr Pavel, who will tap the new prime minister, was expected to begin talks with the elected party leaders today. Danny Zhou reports.
According to the Statistical Office, with 99% of voting districts counted, the populist ANO party was leading on 34.7% but fell short of an overall majority. The ruling pro-Western Spolu coalition led by Prime Minister Petr Fiala came in second place with over 23.2%. Fiala congratulated ANO's win on Saturday. He said his goal was to put together a democratic government based on the current framework. But it is clear from the election results that this will not be possible at this time. A triumphant Babis was all smiles as he hailed what he described as historic result. The 71-year-old, a self-proclaimed Trumpist, said he would seek a one-party cabinet, but had already started talks with small right-wing parties to pass the 5% threshold. Babis, who served as Prime Minister from 2017 to 2021, once wanted to join the euro but later became a Eurosceptic. He noted that his ANO party has a clear agenda to transform the country for the better. It campaigned on pledges of faster economic growth, welfare and lower taxes for students and young families. It also insists NATO and the European Union should handle aid for Ukraine, having abstained in some European Parliament votes supporting Ukraine and its bid for EU membership. Babis told reporters that they want to save Europe and affirmed ANO's pro-European and pro-NATO stance. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
Back locally, the #1 signal is still in force, but tropical cyclone Matmo is heading away from Hong Kong. The storm has made landfall over Leizhou Peninsula. The winds were still strong over parts of the territory in the early afternoon, and there still will be a few squally showers and thunderstorms today. Seas will be rough with swells, and the public are advised to stay away from the shoreline. The 25th World Transplant Games took place in Germany recently. All athletes were organ transplant recipients or donors. Hong Kong came 18th out of 48 countries and territories after scoring 55 medals. Meanwhile, Director of Health Ronald Lam called on more people to submit their intention to donate body parts to the centralized organ donation register. Samantha Lee reports.
The city's delegation of 43, who have all undergone organ transplants, as well as 2 organ donors, made a triumphant return. Taking part in 149 events, the team scooped 55 medals, 11 more than that of previous times. Bernard C., the youngest athlete on the team at just 7 years old, scored 4 medals in table tennis, swimming, running, and cricket ball throwing. Her father said he had been very depressed when his daughter was diagnosed with biliary atresia. He expressed gratitude to his wife, who donated 1/3 of her liver so that their daughter can thrive and show her sporting talent. Currently, about 400,000 of the city's residents have registered their intention to donate organs. However, Director of Health Ronald Lam said Hong Kong has lower per capita organ donations than developed regions, such as Spain. He said it is time for the city to restart a discussion on organ donation policy. Suggesting an opt-out scheme, he said residents are still able to object to donation, so human rights are not violated. He appeals to all members of the public to support organ donation, citing that at least 4,000 patients are still waiting for an organ transplant. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
An environmental group has reported that on the first day of the National Day Golden Week, more than 4,000 people visited Sharp Island in Sai Kung, and some engaged in behavior that damaged the environment. The Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department appealed to visitors to help preserve the natural environment. Greenpeace conducted an inspection of Sharp Island last Wednesday and found an excessive number of snorkelers in coral areas. Some people were even walking on and stepping on coral with their feet, which can break or kill coral. They also observed large numbers of visitors digging up coastal creatures such as starfish and sea urchins, littering and illegally lighting fires to cook. The group urged the government to study the carrying capacity of the islands and formulate corresponding conservation measures. Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Deputy Director Patrick Lai and others visited the island yesterday for an inspection. He said the department would step up patrols and distribute leaflets to visitors. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.